congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the people of Israel said to them, would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the meat pots and ate bread to the full. For you have brought us into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. So we sit back and we think about the fact that Israel is free from the oppression of Egypt, but they are complaining and want to go back. Like, we're sitting here looking at this, you've been freed, you're no longer under the oppression, but now they're saying, can we just go back? Like, it would have been better for us to be there. Why? Why are they acting like this?
Because they've been camping for a month.
They've been camping for a month? So this is the journey that the Lord took me on yesterday about the convenience of oppression.
Oh,
wow.
The convenience of oppression. So let me tell you, my toes got stepped on hard. So I want to let's walk this out, because this I believe is almost more relevant today than it was in their time. So I think we see modern examples of this with domestic violence cases. People should leave, but they're going back. So I did a little bit of studying on the psychological side of domestic violence. And this is what I found. Anybody ever heard of the Stockholm Syndrome?
Yep.
Yes.
So if you haven't, the Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological condition that occurs when a victim of abuse identifies and attaches or bonds positively with their abuser. This syndrome was originally observed when hostages who were kidnapped not only bonded with their kidnappers, but also fell in love with them. Then there's also...
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast, yes. Beauty and the Beast, trauma-based.
Trauma-based.
Alright, so there's also an issue, the psychological thing called trauma bonding. And trauma bonding occurs when a person experiences abuse, develops an unhealthy attachment to their abuser. They may rationalize or defend the abusive actions, feel a sense of loyalty, isolate from others, and hope that the abuser's behavior will change.
Wow.
So survivors sometimes want the abuse to end, but not the relationship.
Right.
So does that sound familiar? That's exactly what we're reading.
Yep.
The Egyptians didn't want to be in bondage. They didn't want to be under their oppression. But they had bonded with Egypt. Remember when we started out studying about this, we talked about how the Israelites came and were sojourners in the land of Egypt. They got put in Goshen. And then the next Torah portion, it started out with, and Israel settled in the land. Then we read a couple chapters later, and it talked about now the Israelites were all intermixed in the land of Egypt. They were no longer just in the land of Goshen. So they had created a bond with Egypt.
Wow.
And I put this, they had lost their holiness. What does the word holy mean? Set apart. They had lost that. They were no longer set apart in the land of Goshen.
Which would explain when God came and did the thing in Ezekiel.
Yes.
They
had gotten intermixed. They were beginning probably to worship their idols. There would have been a lack of separation between their character and the character of Egypt.
And also, it's easier for them. They don't have to work as hard. It's
Yep.
just like prisoners who are released and go back out into society.
Yep.
And they find that it's hard to find jobs, it's hard to find housing, whatever. It's easier just to make a crime and go back to prison and stay there where they're fed, bed, work out, watch TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything's taken care of.
So oppression may be awful, but let's look at that. Let's look at the characteristics of oppression in Egypt. Okay? So these are the things that oppression was. Oppression was consistent. Every day, they knew exactly what was happening. They knew exactly what their job was. Every day was, day by day, the exact same thing. So it's consistent. It meant you were taken care of. Verse 16:3 said that they sat by meat pots and had bread to their fill. So they were taken care of.
What are meat pots?
Pots of meat.
Pots of meat.
It just sounds gross.
Mary?
It's like spam.
I'll take it when
Not
I'm in
canned
Spam.
meat.
Oh,
Not canned meat. Pots of
meat.
meat.
Let's say-
It was probably like
It's
it probably had been
a
salted
stew
and preserved, and they had it in pots,
Like
covered pots, so
jerky.
they kept the bugs off of it. But they had shelter. They lived in the land of Goshen. They had houses, right?
Goshen seemed to be pretty nice.
There would have been less stress. You know, you might be like, "How's it less stress?" We're going to see that in just a second. It was convenient. It was very convenient for them. And again, we're going to see this in a second. So let's parallel that to now. Let's look at now they're in quote unquote freedom. So they've been released. So what was the characteristics of their freedom?
Chaos.
It
was inconsistent.
Move with the cloud.
And they moved to the cloud.
That's right.
They weren't supposed to move until the cloud moved.
You
so
never know.
You might camp here for 3 or 4 days and then move, and then you get over here, and the next day, oh, we got to move again.
What
Which
we
means
just
they gotta
here?
set
What
up
were
and
we-
tear down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Set up
and
just
tear
set
down.
up and tear
Just
Set
down.
up and tear down.
I mean, think about that.
They're tense.
So they only got their daily bread. We're gonna look here in a minute. The Lord provided them, but they only got what they needed for that day. Whereas before they had pots of meat. They had canned meat to their desires. They had spam sandwiches all
They
day
did
long.
not have spam.
Spam and eggs.
Right? Shelter was a luxury. So I got thinking about it. Before they had stone, mud huts, houses. If they had to get ready that quick to get out of there, how many of them do you think may not have even had a tent when they left? Like they're just like, let's go, let's get out.
Well, it's not like we have today where we have camping tents that we can pack away and
Stop
go.
by the quick Walmart, grab a
They-
tent, no.
Yeah, they don't have that.
No. So this would have been very stressful. Fear of the unknown. This would have been xenophobia to the max. They don't know. They have no idea what's going to happen. All they have is to be able to trust in Yah.
And I mean, out in the wilderness, there's like wild animals.
Yeah. And it was inconvenient. It was inconvenient for them to have to think about the food, to have to think about shelter. All these things they now had to think about would have been super convenient. So this is not a rhetorical question. How can we see this in our world today? I mean, how can we see this in our world today? I mean, let's just think about the pandemic that we were just in, right? Is it more convenient for people to go to work or sit on their butts at home and collect this check that they're getting from the government?
Yep.
I mean, I think every business can tell you the answer to that question. But people don't want to work. They don't want to go to work. It's more convenient. Oh, why would I go to work? I can just sit here.
They can make more money at home.
Exactly. There's so many. I mean, our governmental system was designed to make it more convenient for you to stay locked into their system than to be able to flourish on your own.
Stimulus checks.
Yeah.
Stimulus checks, government assistance.
Yep. So here's some lessons that we can see in this. When it's time for Yah to lead you into the promises, it's going to be inconvenient.
Ooh.
Yikes.
It's going to be inconvenient.
Olivia's like, no.
Right? There are going to be things that you have to lay down.
Uh-oh.
There's going to be. And this is a tough one. There are going to be bonds you have to break.
Erica's face.
Right? You are going to get uncomfortable walking into God's promises. And the journey into God's promises is going to be uncomfortable. And I put a quote in there because this is what the Lord told Abby years ago. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
At the kitchen center. I need you to become comfortable
With being uncomfortable.
You
Yah,
said, please no.
but here's some hope. Yah wants you to be set apart to avoid this. The more you set yourself apart now, as you get closer to the promises of Yah, there's less bonds you have to break. There's less things that you're going to have to lay down. There is going to be less uncomfortable if you begin the process now. The problem was Israel left the place where they were set apart and began to get sucked into Egypt. So then when he wanted to bring them into the promises, he had to break all of that loose before he could get them into the promises. So I guess what I'm saying is start now. Set yourself apart. Break off bonds. Get uncomfortable. Go ahead and prep yourself. Start enjoying being uncomfortable. Because let me tell you, it's just as soon as you get to the place where you start to get comfortable, there's another thorn that's going to come into your side, and you're going to get uncomfortable again as God walks you through another aspect of getting closer to His promises.